So Pinchos 3, Toshim Pei, if we take, we're going to start talking with Hashem about the Korbanos, which form the second half, almost, of the parsha. First Korban is the Korban Tomid. So the first Korban, we talk about this Korban Tomid. Second Korban after that is the Korban of Shabbos. I'm just going to look at the main Rashis. Korban Tomid is you bring two kvosim, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, keneged shnaim ro'im, against the shemesh, perhaps to lafuke, to come to sort of to oppose those who used to serve the sun itself as a god. Right. So the important point by the Tomid. By the Shabbos. After that we have the Shabbos. And what's on the Shabbos? We have a Shabbos, two kvosim, which is very interesting. We're going to see for Yom Tov you bring a lot more than just two little sheep. On the Yom Tov you bring normally two ox, an aisle, a goat, and then 7 kvosim for an oila, and then you bring a chatos as well. You bring the sochim obviously, and then you bring a chatos. Whereas here you just bring 2 kvosim. And we're going to talk about that in Mitzvah Hashem, and the Toises and the Rosh, why such a small korban. But Rashi brings, and the Pasuk says, Oilas Shabbos v'Shabbatoi, which is actually mute. Oilas Shabbos, you bring the Oila of Shabbos v'Shabbatoi on its designated Shabbos, meaning not another Shabbos. Which other Shabbos might you bring? It says, telling me that normally by Tefillah, if you have a person forgot to daven, for example, Shachris, then inadvertently they are entitled to daven Mincha twice. The next Tefillah they're allowed to daven twice. As Tashlumi, it's sort of like a compensation, a compensatory Tefillah. It's like maybe it's not compensation for you, it's compensation for your obligation. It's recompensing, doubling your obligation the next Tefillah. However, when it comes to the Korban of Shabbos, had you forgotten or inadvertently somehow based on not being offered the Shabbos offerings, a particular Shabbos, could you the next Shabbos bring double? Instead of bring 2 kvosim, you'll bring 4. So the Pasuk says, no, Oilas Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, on its Shabbos and not the next Shabbos. Al Oilas HaTomid, what does it mean, Al Oilas HaTomid, over and above the Oilas HaTomid? Apart from the kvosim of the Tomid. And what's telling us? That the only time actually when you meant to bring the designated time for bringing the Tomid, the Musafin, is Al Oilas HaTomid, between the Tomid. They bring the Tomid in the morning, one Tomid, and the afternoon Tomid, the second half is brought the second sheep in the afternoon. That constitutes the Tomid. That's the 2 sections of the day. And in between that, you bring all the other korbanos that are brought. Every other single korban that is brought, essentially, with some minor exceptions, there are Pesach, etc., have to be brought between the 2 Tmidim. That's Oilas HaTomid. The Shabbos has to be brought between the Tmidim. It's interesting, it's spelled all the time, Oilas HaTomid, Ayin Lamed Tov. The other Vov, Oilas, Ayin Lamed Tov, shorthand. And the same thing, on Rosh Chodesh, the next korban that's dealt with is Rosh Chodesh. And it says, this is the korban that you bring for Rosh Chodesh, which is 2 parim, 1 ayil, 7 kvosim, and that's Oilas Chodesh b'Chodshei, each one in its month. Again, if you forgot to bring it on Rosh Chodesh, you cannot wait till the next month and bring double. Similar idea. So what's it telling us? And we bring also chatos on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom Tov. And what's the chatos for? So we're told, Rashi tells us, the chatos that we see, for example, that's brought on Rosh Chodesh is brought because of any various tumas mikdash culture, any transgressions the person might have inadvertently made, based in the Kohanim might have made regarding the laws of spiritual impurity, Tumah V'Taira in the Beis HaMikdash, in the course of offering any of the sacrifices, they are atoned for on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom Tov. You also bring a chatos on Yom Tov when you bring the special sacrifice we're going to see you bring on Yom Tov. There's also a chatos always accompanying them, and that is always to atone for any inadvertent impurity that may have accompanied the sacrifice in the korbanos. And the Forshim asks, why not on Shabbos? Why do you bring it on these occasions? And you might have asked, why is it appropriate to bring it on these occasions, on Yom Tov? On the contrary, Yom Tov is a time of elevated holiness, a time when you're bringing extra korbanos over and above what your general obligation is. So why would that be a time specifically to remind us and to invoke previous Averis, transgressions in the sphere of Tumah? And Rashi also brings another remes, which we bring on Rosh Chodesh. Each Yom Tov has got its own individual aspect of impurity. It's about, if you didn't know, the Gemara in Shavuos talks about it at length. If you didn't know in advance, or you didn't know afterwards, or you didn't know either in advance or afterwards that there was any Tumah involved, so these require a korban, a sacrifice they brought as penitence, as a kapora, to atone. And another reason why you bring the sacrifice, as Rashi on Rosh Chodesh specifically, is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I need a sacrifice. Because it says, L'Hashem. Hashem also needs a chatos. What does Hashem need a chatos? Because Shemi'ati es lavono. For I made the lavono small. If Hashem says, I also need to make a chatos. We have to try and understand that perhaps a little bit what that means. Shemiyati es lavono. Then we have Pesach, sacrifice of Pesach, of Shavuos, of Rosh Hashanah, of Yom Kippur, and then we get to Succos. They're all very similar, basically, each one with its own slight nuances. If we have time, we should go into them all, but we're going to jump to Succos because that's the main, now innovative korban. All of the other korbanos, look at the numbers. You generally bring, and so we get to Succos. So let's take a look a little bit at the numbers on Succos. You can see them, I think. Succos is interesting. Let's contrast. All the other Moyadim, Rosh Chodesh, Shavuos, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, essentially the numbers are, Porit you bring for an oilo. Chatos you always bring one chatos. I didn't write it, you bring one chatos. Oilo you always bring on these 5 occasions, Rosh Chodesh, Shavuos, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, you bring 1 or 2 porim, you bring 1 or 2 elim, goats, and 7 kvosim, all 7 kvosim. However, when it comes to Succos, the numbers change significantly. And it's actually a revolving amount in terms of the porim. You bring far more. On the first day, you bring 13 porim. Instead of the normal 1 or 2, you bring 13. And you bring 2 elim, always. On every day you bring 2 elim. And kvosim, every day you bring 14. So 14 is a constant for the first 7 days of Succos. However, on the first 7 days, the porim changes. Goes 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. The 7th day it's 7 porim. So that's the significance of Succos. Until you reach Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres, you go back to the sort of normal type of regime, where you bring 1 pan, 1 aisle, and 7 kvosim. You're back to your normal. That's one observation. The Rosh is going to make another observation, that on Succos, when it describes bringing the chatos, each day it says you bring a chatos. It says it very briefly, Seir chatos echod. So sometimes it uses the expression Seir chatos echod, and sometimes it uses the expression Seir izim echod chatos. So you hear this every Succos and you sort of, who cares? Seir chatos, Seir izim chatos, just sort of keeps the Baal Korah on his toes. But the Rosh sort of points out, doesn't tell us why, he points out significantly that, or he tells the way a mnemonic of way of remembering it, that where does it say Seir on the first day, on the second day, and on the 4th day. That's when it says Seir Izim. Let's just check the Rosh. Fourth day. Seir Izim Echad, yeah, he's got it. And on the second day, Seir Izim Echad Chatos, yeah. Whereas on the other days it's Seir Chatos Echad. I've written in green, Seir Izim Echad Chatos on days 1, 2, and 4, which are days of 13, 12, and respectively 10 Purim. That's basically the progression of the Korbanos and Succos. Let's take a look now at actually the Das Zekenim and the Toises Arash. We've got some interesting observations generally about the Korbanos. So Das Zekenim brings regarding the Korbanos on Shabbos. The Rosh also asks very similar question and answer. He says, why is it that on Shabbos the Korbanos are so much less than the Korbanos and all the other Moyadim? On Yom Tov you bring 7, 2, 7, 1, 13, 2, 14. Far greater numbers of Korbanos. And on Shabbos you just bring 2 kvosim every single Shabbos. Why is that? And Shabbos, they say, Shabbos, the Medrash brings Shabbos came with a question, came with a claim, a complaint. Why is it that I am being singled out to bring far less sacrifices than the other Moyadim? And Hashem said to him, this is what is appropriate for you. You have to understand, because it's koful, double. Everything about you is double. The shear is double. Mizmor shear on Yom Shabbos. Mizmor shear, it's a double shear. Oinig, you have a double oinig. The festive enjoyment in Shabbos is double. With Shabbos oinig, on Shabbos you have oinig, which is festive enjoyment, and Likdosh Hashem, the holy designated day of Hashem, Chubad, is also accorded great honor. This double elevated status of Shabbos, again, is part of its duality, its double nature. And also, Oin Shei Kafel, its punishment is double. Namely, Mechalem Mois Yumos, whoever transgresses Shabbos, Mois Yumos, double punishment. He has to surely be put to death. Lechem Kafel, we bring Lechem Mishnah, we bring 2 lechem, 2 breads, 2 chalas on Shabbos. Therefore, it's also appropriate that its korban should be sort of a double, 2 kvosim. And the Das King brings a mashal, like somebody, a king, who makes a feast for his servants, and he tells his servants, prepare a feast for my son. And they prepare 2 delicacies for the son, and once they finish, the king says to them, bring for me. I want you to prepare for me a meal of delicacies. And they say, what should we prepare for you? And he says to them, prepare me what you prepared for my son. That's what I want. Similarly here, Hashem says to Klal Yisrael, bring lechem mishnah, you should have 2 chalas on Shabbos, just like, says Hashem, therefore, because, just like Hashem also, we have 2 lechem, 2 what? Lechem mishnah b'yom Shabbos, lechem mishnah. Yeah, we also, you makriv lechem mishnah, the lechem aponim, it's actually 12 loaves, but you sacrifice double bread, or maybe it means a double korban, again the 2 kvosim on Shabbos that you bring. So everything is doubled, and Klal Yisrael is corresponding to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's double. Oh, and also Das Kenim brings that you, Hashem, on Tikanta Shabbos, he brings the prayer of Tikanta Shabbos that we say in the Musaf, prayer on Shabbos and Shemoneh Esrei. That Tzivisa Perushel, you commanded those to refrain from performing work on Shabbos. So that refers to Shomer V'Zocher, which is also a double-barreled commandment regarding the keeping of Shabbos. And the Medrash points out that we have sometimes a contrast. It's like almost a contradiction, Shomer and Zocher. And it seems to compare to the fact that we have a contradiction, that we have a prohibition against marrying one's sister-in-law, one's brother's wife. Nevertheless, if he is to die childless, there's a mitzvah to marry his wife. And that's like a contradiction. Similarly, we have Shomer V'Zocher. And since there was said, B'dibur echad, since Hashem commanded them together, that somehow is what enables this phenomenon to occur. And he says, what is Shomer v'Zocher? That Zocher means, actually, it's a commandment to remember it when B'Knisosai, when Shabbos comes in. You're meant to remember Shabbos by making Kiddush. Zachrei L'Yayim B'Knisosai, you mention Kiddush when Shabbos comes in, that's a mitzvah asay. And women essentially should be not obligated in that, because it's a positive mitzvah that has a specific time reference when you're meant to perform it. Nevertheless, Shomer, which is a mitzvah lois asay, keep the Shabbos, and that women are commanded that. Hishori, keep means it's like a lav, it's like a prohibition. Do not profane the Shabbos. That's really what it means, Shmur. And therefore, and we compare, since Shomer and Zocher are said together, therefore women are chayiv even in the Zocher, in the positive commandment, which comes at a specific time. And therefore women are chayiv in Kiddush. So, what's the Das Kenim saying with all of this? That's what I'm asking. And Das Kenim asks another question. Why do we not read Kriyas Torah on Shabbos? This is like an Old Yom Tovim. We read the Torah passage of the Moyadis of that refers to the actual festival that is pertaining to on Pesach. We read the various portions in the Torah that refer to Pesach. So similarly with Succos. So why in Shabbos would we not lay a parsha referring to Shabbos and referring perhaps to the korbanos of Shabbos? And even though it's only 2 psukim, the korbanos of Shabbos is only 2 psukim, nevertheless we could have read the portion that comes before that, which talks about the korban tomid, the eternal sacrifices brought every day. Just like we do on Rosh Chodesh, we preface the Rosh Chodesh sacrifices that we read on Rosh Chodesh with the everyday sacrifice. So the same thing on Shabbos, you could do the same thing. So, answers, there's 2 answers brought. First answer is, because essentially reading the parsha is like a kapara, atonement. And Shabbos does not have an atonement. Because we're told that sacrifice themselves are generally an atonement. Because Avram said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how am I going to inherit Eretz Yisrael? Maybe my children will not be worthy of it. And Hashem said, you'll have the korbanos, Koli Eglo Mishuleshes, bring the covenant of the pieces. This is a special covenant that Hashem made with Avram, and it was based, they explain, on the sacrificial order. That's how you can be certain that your children will inherit Eretz Yisrael. And Avram said, yeah, that's very good. They'll bring sacrifices when the temple is around. What happens when the temple is destroyed? There's no sacrificial order. What's going to preserve them then? Even though generally when the temple is not around, we actually do not have Eretz Yisrael. But nevertheless, he was still asking maybe what's going to preserve them whatsoever. Or perhaps we have to understand this, was considered in Eretz Yisrael, even though we don't have the sacrificial order. We need some form of spiritual preservation. So Hashem says, what will guard them, what will merit them at the time when there's no temple, no sacrificial order? So Hashem says, they'll read the Torah portions regarding the special sacrificial order, and that will be as if, I'll consider that as if they had brought the sacrifices themselves. And therefore, all the other portions in the Torah of Yom Tov have a kapara element to them. They all talk about a chatos. You bring a chatos in all of these Yom Tovim. On Shabbos, there's no chatos. Therefore, we don't read the portion because we don't need an atonement. Shabbos is not an atonement like Yom Tov. We have to understand, why is Yom Tov an atonement? Why is Shabbos not? What's it telling us? And they say also, in actual fact, because it's a remez in the Torah, that you have to read the parshas on Yom Tov, because it says, Elam Yadei Hashem, these are the special times of Hashem. Hashem tikra'u something, you should call them. So generally it means you should call them, based in should sort of announce the coming of the Yom Tovim. You should sanctify the Rosh Chodesh, the new month, in anticipation of the Yom Tov coming. And that gives sanctity to the Yom Tov itself, based on the calculations, etc., and the sanctification of the new moon. But also literally, tikra'u means to read, which is a hint, a remez, the fact that, yes, you should actually read the portions in the Torah refer to the moyadim. But in Shabbos it doesn't say tikra'u, because Shabbos is not called a moyed, because it says in the moyad Hashem. These are special designated times of Yom Tovim, of celebrations for Hashem, festive for Hashem. Shabbos is not a moyed, and therefore it's not tikra'u. It's not moyad Hashem. It's not the special appointed times when you should read. Shabbos is not a special appointed time. Shabbos is Shabbos. Even Rosh Chodesh is a specially appointed time. Where do we find Rosh Chodesh especially appointed time? Because it says, interestingly, it's always quoted, that Rosh Chodesh is called a moyed. Where do we learn it from? Kor olay moyed lishpur bachuroi. When Hashem engineered that Tammuz, the Meraglim left to search Eretz Yisrael, to spy out Eretz Yisrael. It was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, and they returned on Tisha B'Av, and it took 40 days. And that could only work out, they would return on Tisha B'Av, if you'd actually add on a day to Tammuz. You'd actually extend Tammuz to its full 30 days, rather than 29 days. And because of that, it came out that the 40th day was Tisha B'Av. Hashem wanted that when it would come out the 40th day. That was a day of crying. That was a day when they cried unnecessarily about what was going to happen. Hashem says, okay, you're going to be crying in the future over the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And the way we learn this, as far as it says, Kara Olay Moyed Lishbur Bachurei. Hashem made a Moyed, so designated a Moyed Lishbur Bachurei. What was the Moyed he designated? It was Rosh Chodesh. He made Rosh Chodesh Tammuz a day later, so that you'd have the 40 days. And in that pasuk, Tammuz, Rosh Chodesh, is referred to as a Moyed. So you see, Rosh Chodesh also is a Moyed. It's interesting, it comes in this sort of slightly pessimistic, negative correlation. That's where we learn that Rosh Chodesh is a Moyed. And that was a Daskein. Let's just look at the Rosh, which basically says, I'm not sure what the Tosfos says. He goes through, why did we not lay on Rosh Chodesh? Because the same reason, because it's not Moyed Hashem, it's not a Moyed. Rosh Chodesh is not a Moyed. And he brings now this simon that, where does it say Seir Izim? How do you know when it says Seir Izim on Succos? Which days is Succos? When it says you bring the chatos, the penitential offering, the sin offering, it sometimes describes as Seir Izim, sometimes as a Seir chatos on day 1, day 2, and day 4 is described as Seir Izim, and on day the rest of the time is Seir Chatos. What's the Rosh saying? He's perhaps giving us a mnemonic, a numerical way of, yes, understanding what's going on. Okay? And he even tells us a way of remembering the Purim. How many Purim? Because Sukkot, it's a changing amount of Purim. First day 13, second day 12, third day 11, etc. How do you remember that? So Rosh tells us, because it always adds up to 14. Day 1, 1 plus how many Purim? 13, 14. Altogether 14. You want to know now. On day 2, how many? Take 14. Altogether 14. Minus day 2 is 12. So how many? 12 Purim. Day 3 should add up to 14. 3 plus what is 14? 11, etc., etc. And therefore you know that the final day 7 of this order will be 7. 7 and 7. So what is the Rosh telling us again with that? And then he talks about Shmini Atzeres, the final day, the 8th day of Sukkos, which the Rabbonim told us that actually it is a yontif unto itself. It's separate regarding what's the famous mnemonic, Pazar, Keshav. It's got its own pious when to designate for the sacrifices for the Kohanim. It's got its own Zman, you say Shechionu. It's got its own it's a regel, etc., etc. It's got its own carbon. It's got its own brocha, etc. Pazar Keshav. Okay. And then the Rosh in all in this one piece really. I think when the Rosh brings all these together, he's telling us something, sort of an integrated message, an integrated insight of the Rosh. The Rosh adds, he goes into discussion. You see people, strange, unique, individual types of people. Someone who's very dark skinned, very white skinned, abnormally. Someone abnormally tall, short, etc. You say a bracha mishana brios. Why does it say this? And you see someone who's exceptionally beautiful, something that's exceptionally fine, pleasant to behold. You say Baruch. And the Rosh adds, you say Baruch Shekoch Eloi B'Olamai, Baruch Hashem, you created such amazing, unique individual sights. And the Rosh adds, Kishem shepartzufein doimois zula ein partzufein doimois lezu. Just like everyone's facial features are unique, similarly, they're also daitom, their opinions, their mental opinion, their mental characteristics, their personalities are all unique. And what's it? Just like these brios, all creations of Hashem really are unique. Then he goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, because he cites in this context Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem said, B'shas Misa, Kodesh Baruch Hu, you know that all Klal Yisrael are individuals. This is where he's connecting it up. Klal Yisrael are all individuals. And therefore they need someone, a leader, a unique leader who can accommodate all those varying types of personalities and approaches, that everyone's got their own opinion and approach as to what is appropriate. And when I leave, there's going to have to be a leader who is able to accommodate and deal with and sympathize and navigate all those various different opinions. So I want someone, you should appoint someone, Hashem, that can manage all of these unique, powerful individual personalities. That's Yivkoid Hashem, Hashem, who is the sovereign of all spirits. I want you to appoint someone. And we brought that this was similar to a woman who was a king who married a woman, and he also had a minister. I'll say it more briefly now because he spoke about it in length earlier. He had a minister who was always intervening on behalf of the wife, and then the minister came his time to die, and he said to the king, please make sure, now I'm no longer here to intervene on her behalf, make sure that you are careful the way you treat her. And Hashem said, on the contrary, rather than you warning me and advising me, counseling me how I should treat my wife, perhaps you speak to her and explain to her how she ought to treat me. Similarly, Moshe Rabbeinu, you are telling me, says the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that I need to appoint someone who will manage and associate and accommodate and sympathize all the various traits that Am Yisrael possess. On the contrary, advise them, counsel them, speak to them about how they should accommodate me. And this is what it says. Tzavis ben Yisrael, the Rosh brings, this is the connection between the previous parasha. The previous parasha was Moshe Rabbeinu asking for an heir to continue his work as leader of Klal Yisrael, and Hashem saying you need to appoint, saying to Hashem, you need to appoint someone who can understand and sympathize, etc., navigate everyone's unique demands, etc. And Hashem says to Moshe, listen, till you're rather than instructing me how I should deal with them, instruct them how they should react towards me. Tzavis ben Yisrael, and that is the preface for the parasha of the Karbonis. So what is the Rosh telling us? And the Das came with all of this. So perhaps you can say there is a sort of theme that permeates this. Perhaps also it's a connection to the previous parasha. But let's start at the beginning. It's Hashem. And we also want to understand what is the idea of this Shmini Atzeres. Why is it called Atzeres? Shmini Atzeres, stopping. What's the idea of all of this? So let's go back to the beginning. On the Shabbos, Shnei Chvosim. Let's first talk about the Oilas Tomid, which Oilas v'Shabbos v'Shabbatui. That you bring Shabbos, the Oilas Shabbos only on Shabbos. And also, we said it means that if you forget to bring it on Shabbos, you cannot bring double the next Shabbos. And also, Al Oilas HaTomid, regarding the Oilas HaTomid, that it has to be brought between the two Tmidim. Oilas hatomi has to be brought between the two tmidim. So you've got the two tmidim, two sections of the day. And you've got in the middle the two kvosim of Shabbos. That's oilas hatomi. So you could say maybe it means like this. It's telling us something about the korbanos. That why is it that if you fail to bring a korban on one Shabbos, that you cannot bring it the next Shabbos? Perhaps it's like this. We have a general rule regarding Tashlumi. A person does not daven one tefillah, doesn't pray one prayer, the next prayer didn't daven Shacharis once. You can daven Mincha twice, and it's considered as a compensation, as you atoned and you made up what was lacking in the tefillahs. But if, for example, you waited too long, there's two cases in which a person cannot repay the missed tefillah. One is if you wait too long. Essentially, you didn't daven Shacharis, you didn't daven Mincha either, or you didn't repay the Shacharis and Mincha, you can no longer repay it at Ma'ariv. The next Ma'ariv. You've gone two tefillahs without repaying, without dealing with Shacharis, you can no longer daven. And another instance in which you cannot repay Shacharis is if it was done, missed, not inadvertently, but perhaps deliberately. Through willful, reckless, or deliberately failing to daven. Under these two circumstances, you're not permitted to, there is no recompense. There's no resort to doubling up your efforts the next time as a tashlumin, as fulfilling your obligation that was lacking. And this, perhaps the reason is perhaps because you can say really what the yisoid, what the underlying rationale of tashlumin is, that essentially a person wants very much to daven. That's basically what underlines the obligation. The person is waiting, he's wanting, he's looking to daven. And when a person fails to daven, so they fail to pray, perhaps at the appointed time Shacharis, so they're filled essentially with remorse and regret and great longing to restore and to relive that missed prayer. And that expresses itself perhaps as this feeling, this empty feeling. When you come to Mincha, you're filled with an overwhelming desire, more than the normal desire to daven Mincha. A person's filled with they really want to make it a really special Mincha. They want to make it extra special because I've missed Shacharis. That's a natural tendency. Because a person is so committed and dedicated to performing his obligation at the time. That perhaps expresses itself. We say, you know what? Daven Mincha twice. That really is an expression of repaying the Shacharis. You're still thinking in your mind, about that Shacharis I missed, I wish I could daven it again. That essentially means that you're still holding my Shacharis. You're still wanting to daven, it's still there by you. And you have the koyach, since the Torah acknowledges this is a valid feeling to a certain extent. Therefore, when it comes to Mincha, you can do maybe a super Mincha or redo the Shacharis. It's really both similar idea that the Shacharis you're missing so much that you can repay it by having this extra tefillah by Mincha. However, if a person missed it twice, you went too far, then one might say the same thing in two different ways, that perhaps the feeling no longer is so strong, is so potent, so intense. You're a long way, you've got over it. At that point, you cannot validly and legitimately claim to say, yes, I'm really still holding by the Shacharis, I genuinely am looking to still daven this extra, pray this extra Shacharis I missed. That you can't say once too much time has elapsed. Or, putting it slightly differently, if you allowed 2 time space spans to elapse, essentially that's a statement. That is making a statement that you do not really care about Shacharis. And if you don't really care about it, you cannot legitimately come and say, okay, I'm entitled to really repay and to express my Shacharis tefillah now at this late time. And similarly, if a person deliberately fails to pray his Shacharis on time, his morning prayers on time, he cannot legitimately, they come along and then say Mincha, okay, now I want to daven Mincha, to repay the Shacharis, the morning prayers I didn't pray. You didn't care yourself. It doesn't bother you, so you cannot now come along and legitimately say, I'm so bothered, I'm so upset about the Shacharis, and still living the Shacharis when I'm davening Mincha, so I want to express that by davening again Mincha. No. If you deliberately fail to daven Shacharis, then it's not by you anymore a genuine, legitimate expression of your remorse at having failed to daven Shacharis on time. That's the idea that also with Shabbos, with the korbanos. Shabbos, if you fail to bring your korban on Shabbos, you cannot bring 2 korbans on next Shabbos. Why? Perhaps because essentially Klal Yisrael are expected the korban is an expression of how dedicated we are towards serving Hashem. And therefore, there's not much you have to do on Shabbos. You have to just bring 2 little sheep, extra sheep on Shabbos. We say it's like doubling up of the korban tomid. Therefore, says Hashem, if you fail to bring it on Shabbos, that's making a very strong statement. That wasn't just an accident. That was really, really undue, unmerited, unwarranted carelessness. In which case, you're actually making a strong statement. You don't really care about Shabbos, about bringing the sacrifice on Shabbos. Therefore, you don't care about them sufficiently. When it comes to next Shabbos, you cannot legitimately say, okay, I want to repay and paying now extra korbanos the subsequent week. No, that's not a legitimate expression of regret, because you cannot fail to perform such an obligation and say that was done out of a genuine oversight. It must have been through severe carelessness, which shows a due lack of respect and appreciation and desire to bring these sacrifices they should be brought, in which case you're not eligible for actually repaying them as it should be. That's one aspect of it. Second, Rashi tells us that when you're bringing any sacrifices, any and all sacrifices have to be brought between the morning and the evening sacrifice. You bring one sheep in the morning, you bring 1 sheep in the afternoon, evening, and every other sacrifice is brought in the Mizbeach has to be before the evening Tomid and after the Shacharis Tomid. Somewhere between during the day, during the course of the day. That's the structure of sacrificing on the Mizbeach. One might say, perhaps, there's an idea expressed in this. What do you mean stamp? It's not just conveniently sort of encapsulating them between these 2 sacrifices. Rather, it's maybe telling us something. This oilas tomid. How is it written? It's written the whole time without a vav. Maybe telling us like this. Essentially, the tomid is not 2 sacrifices. Essentially, it's 1 sacrifice in some ways. It's 1 sacrifice, half of which is brought in the morning and half of which is brought in the evening. And the result of that is that essentially, and maybe that is also saying something else. Why is it 1? It's not just designated legally, defined as 1. It's maybe an expression of, when Hashem says to us, bring 2 korbanos, essentially, Klal Yisrael is so waiting to bring the 2 korbanos, they want to bring them straight away. Can't wait to bring the 2 to meeting. That's all Klal Yisrael are thinking about. And Hashem says, now bring it in the afternoon. One I want to bring in the morning, but the other one I want to wait till the afternoon. So we're saying all the time, I can't wait, I'm waiting to bring this other korban. So we're sort of the whole time engrossed and thinking and worrying about when are we going to be able to bring this afternoon sacrifice. And thereby, essentially, it's really 1 long action. It becomes 1 long action of dealing with the korban tomid. The whole time we're thinking from the beginning about completing it at the end of the tomid. That is perhaps also the reason why it's so appropriate that all the other sacrifices come in between. Hashem says, take the momentum, the spiritual momentum you've created, that you're engrossed yourself naturally in bringing a korban the whole day. That's the time when I want you to be bringing any other sacrifice. Because the sacrifice has to be brought with essentially complete dedication, complete commitment. Anything else you bring all the time is to a certain extent, it's random. You're not doing anything. You decide, okay, now I'm going to bring a korban. Hashem says, no, that's not the way I want it to work. It's meant to work that, like we saw also with the Shabbos, it's meant to be an expression of complete, utter dedication. In other words, I'm already engrossed, so sort of that I'm going to bring everything. I want to bring a korban, okay, that's going to expand to accommodating all other sacrifices. I'm bringing it with complete, I'm completely involved the whole time. That's when I bring all my other sacrifices during the day. And, okay, now let's talk about the moyadim. But actually, let's go straight to Succos now. And we can discuss these points we've been making. And let's talk about Shabbos. We're contrasting now Shabbos and the Moyadim. Shabbos has got very minimal korbanos, and the Moyadim have got very extensive korbanos. And we're told Shabbos is like doubling. Everything's a double. It's a double shira. It's a double oineg. It's a double oinish. Dual punishment. Mois yumos. Double lechem. You bring 2 lechems. So what is all this saying? So perhaps one might suggest the following. That essentially Shabbos is perhaps sort of this idea. That it's not a new korban. It's not something new. Shabbos, you bring a special korban. No, on the contrary. Essentially, every day we would like to bring a korban Shabbos. Every day we would like to be Shabbostic. Every day is sort of an abstract, is a projection of Shabbos, of the holiness of Shabbos. But we're busy during the week. We've got other mundane pursuits that take our attention, and therefore we're not completely available to perform additional sacrifices. Figuratively speaking, of course, technically we could bring as many as we would have to. We could bring 10 kvasim, etc. But essentially, figuratively, symbolically, that's what we're saying. Essentially, we're distracted, and therefore we bring, what we can, which is 2 kvasim. That's what we bring. And yes, and that leads to everything else being brought. Maybe even saying an additional idea. On Shabbos, so to speak, we're sort of freed up. We're freed up from everything that's distracting us. So, on Shabbos, when it comes to being freed up, we don't have any more of the commitments and distractions. Okay, now we can open up. Now we can really behave the way we'd like to be. So now we're no longer distractions. Okay, we're going to bring a special korban, special double talmid, because that's what we've been wanting to do the whole time. I was frustrated the whole time. We could only bring one single talmid. We wanted to bring more. Okay, Shabbos, the distractions are taken away. Now you're going to express that by bringing, a double talmid. Now we can bring it with extra zest and zeal. That is maybe the idea of Shabbos being a double. It's sort of a natural organic progression into an elevated spiritual state. It's not sort of a new, designated special time. It's a time that sort of evolved through removing the distractions. So Shabbos sort of elevates itself, becomes automatically a heightened, enhanced, holy status day. And that, perhaps an expression of that is sort of the intensity. It reflects essentially our intense devotion to serving Hashem the whole time. Just as distractions, Shabbos, the distractions leave, and now we are free to sort of express our complete, utter dedication to Hashem on Shabbos. That's maybe what it's saying. It shares kafel, it's doubled, we're doubly happily. The oynish is kafel. It's double. What does it mean the oynish is kafel? Mois yumos, because Shabbos is so severe. In contrast to the moyadim. Because the moyadim, what is contrasting Shabbos with the moyadim, with the Yom Tovim? The Yom Tovim, so to speak, represents a special effort that has to be made. Comes the time of the moyadim, you have to make a special effort to bring these korbanos. It's not something that sort of organically flows. And that's maybe reflected in an idea that has to come through basting. Man sort of decides. Because it's sort of dependent on man. It's not something that organically, the Bria itself, sort of creates this Kedusha. It's not something inherent. It's something we have to work at. Something we have to, maybe that's why we bring such an enhanced, such a fancy array of korbanos. Perhaps also, yes, a special elevated status, but maybe on the contrary. In order to achieve this elevated status, we have to work that extra hard on the Mayadim to achieve some form of elevated holiness. Whereas in Shabbos, it's like we said, it's like the natural progression of holiness. Because the Mayadim actually happen to coincide with very much other events. It's a time of judgment, or it's a time of harvest, or it's a time of the second harvest, of reaping the fruits, or of planting, or of gathering, etc. And those who want to say, yes, the Jewish calendar is an agricultural calendar. And maybe yes, but not because of the agriculture. That's why we sort of based all the holidays. But maybe on the contrary, according to this idea, that normally we have various pursuits that we have to undertake during the year. We have to deal with our livelihood and all our various other distractions. On these particular times, these agricultural orientated festivals, time when it's harvest, the time of the of planting, time of gathering in, time of judgment. These are times when we are busy, so to speak, with other things, particularly the 3 regalim. On the contrary, when you're busy with these other things, these so to speak are a distraction from serving Hashem. And therefore the Torah says, on these times, that's the times I want you not to get over engrossed with dealing with mundane matters in the world. This is a time that you have to dedicate yourself with extra zest towards serving Hashem. This is the time I want you to come to the base of Mikdash and make an extra effort. So to speak, almost to counter, or maybe to channel. But it starts off by countering and thereby channeling, enhancing the holiness. Convert it into something holy. But it starts maybe with the fact that there is one aspect of it, it's a distraction. That way, the ways the world so to speak, come to distract us. And therefore we come on the Moyad to make an extra special effort to bring these special sacrifices. Which is why on the Moyadim, on the contrary, there's always room for achatos. We asked why. Why is there always the sacrifices brought that's in memory of not in memory, that's a atonement for any ways in which we might have acted inappropriately in sacrificing on the Mizbeach itself. Tumas Mikdash V'Kol, the time we sacrifice that is Dafka on Yom Tov. And why? On Shabbos we don't. Because on Yom Tov, perhaps on the contrary, there is too many distractions. And we have to sort of compensate. Yom Tov itself is really a compensation for being over-distracted with other mundane matters. So we make the extra effort to bring ourselves close to Hashem, Dafka on these times. So we should not get over-distracted with other mundane matters. That's the time also, yes, perhaps, when we might actually become insufficiently careful with the way we offer as sacrifices to Hashem. We may be distracted, and therefore that's the time when, yes, you have to bring a chatos. Maybe that unique effort itself of having to bring so many korbanos, of having to work so hard to bring such a special sacrifice in Yom Tov, but it's not organic, it's not natural. That itself can lead to being one being over, sort of, not over enthusiastic, but over keen to ensure that things work out under trying pressurized circumstances. That can lead to certain problems creeping in with the sacrifices, in which case that's why again you would have to bring ichatos. That is contrasting Shabbos with Yom Tov. And maybe that's also Lechem Mishnah. Why do you bring Lechem Mishnah on Shabbos? You get twice, we don't get twice as much. Really we got twice as much on Friday, Erev Shabbos. And Lechem Mishnah we bring on Shabbos is actually a zeich, a reminder of the extra Lechem we got on Friday. And why was it we got Lechem Mishnah on Friday? So you could say it was, there's really two ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it is, Hashem provided every day. Every day the mon came down, and Hashem said, Sunday you get one portion, Monday you get a portion, Friday you get 2 portions. Why? Because Shabbos is a day of rest. Hashem is not working on Shabbos. Every day I provide for you. So Sunday I provide for you for one day, because I know the Monday I'm going to be providing for you, because Hashem is always looking after us. So on Sunday He knows definitely He's going to be providing on Mondays. He doesn't have to give twice a portion on Monday. On Sunday, 1 portion is enough. Similarly, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, Hashem says, I know tomorrow Shabbos. Tomorrow you're not going to be provided for. Therefore, I'm going to provide you with a double portion on Friday. And anticipate, because you're not going to have to eat on Shabbos. That's one aspect. It's sort of a negative. That's because you're not going to have, so I'm going to give you now. There's also a positive aspect to it. That essentially every day we are provided for that day. Why? Because Hashem said, who says you're going to merit the next day? I'm providing you for today. Say that today somewhere you deserved it. Tomorrow, you're going to have to see how you behave today to decide whether you're going to be meriting it tomorrow. Let's see how you're going to behave tomorrow. Then, based on that, you'll get tomorrow. I cannot predict. A person can never take his livelihood ultimately for granted. Even Yaakov Avinu was told that he has to always remain dependent on Hashem. However, it comes to Friday, the story is different. Friday, Hashem says tomorrow is Shabbos. Shabbos is the holy day when all the restraints are removed, when all the distractions are removed, all the mundane aspects of the world that would seek to distract us from serving Hashem properly are removed. Shabbos, there's an organic holiness that permeates everything. There's automatic transition to a higher spiritual level. We can be rest assured, without any question, the clients are going to be serving Hashem as is appropriate on Shabbos, in which case on Friday I can already anticipate you're deserving on Shabbos. Shabbos you're definitely going to be deserving of receiving what is due to you, and therefore that expresses itself. That's a Lechem Mishnah that we are apportioned on Erev Shabbos. And the Moshel, the king says to his children, he says, prepare for me a meal. He says to servants, prepare a meal for my children. And they prepare a meal for the children. And then Hashem says to the servant, the king says to the servant, okay, now prepare a meal for me. And they say, what should we prepare? And he says, just like you prepared for my children, I want you to prepare for me. Maybe that's what it's saying. Hashem, so to speak, is saying, the Melech is saying, the way you view my children, that's really the way you treat me. My children, generally, are for me, are an expression of my honor is so tied up with the honor of my children, because they so reflect my honor, they so are so close to me, that the way you treat them, that's really a true expression of the way is appropriate for you to treat me. And that's what Hashem is saying. So when it comes to, especially to Shabbos, that we are the bonim of Hashem, we're mamish so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the way we act, the way we reflect our holy spirits, so close to Hashem. So Hashem says, on this day, my table and your table are going to reflect one and another. Let's look at the interesting remozim that the Rosh told us. Well, first of all, no, let's look at something what the decending told us. The decending told us that there seems to be a contradiction. You've got, on the one hand, a Yavoma, a person cannot marry their sister-in-law, but when a person, the brother, dies without children, you can marry his sister-in-law. And he sort of said that's a bit of a contradiction. But they were said together. And maybe what that means is that normally, yes, you cannot marry your sister-in-law. You should not be marrying your sister-in-law. But if she dies childless, the Torah says the mitzvah of Yibum. Now you're doing something else. You are helping to reproduce the memory of your brother. And the Torah considers this as a mitzvah. And maybe it works like this. When it comes to doing a mitzvah, the principle is a person is so involved, so taken, so committed, dedicated to performing this mitzvah, this commandment in its perfection, in its entirety, that, so to speak, one views now this woman, this sister-in-law. Till now she was a sister-in-law, she was a person, a woman, a sister-in-law. Now, and as a sister-in-law she's not permitted. Now, on the contrary, she became something else. She acquired different status. She became someone from whom the Torah expects me to do a certain mitzvah. That mitzvah itself is so powerful, so potent, it actually has the potential to change the whole perspective of this person, of this relationship. It's no longer me marrying a sister-in-law. It's me performing the mitzvah the Torah says of maintaining the memory of my brother. That is how it can actually override. That's maybe the deeper aspect of the Seidoi Chalitza says Shesh Bekoris. That's the way we can sort of override the transgressions that normally would apply in such a case. It's no longer such a case. It's a case that's got a different definition. We've got a whole different look at it. Once the Torah has prescribed this as a mitzvah, it becomes, that's what its whole essence becomes imbibed with this dynamic, with this idea that we're dealing with the mitzvah, marrying, perpetuating the memory of his brother. And this maybe also is what place is getting at with Shomer and Zocher the whole time. Similar idea. That you've got Shomer and Zocher, which is Shabbos, the Shomer and Zocher. And women are ultimately told that Shomer and Zocher are compared one to another, and ultimately even women. Zocher is really a mitzvah that is commanded at a specific time, make Kiddush when Shabbos comes in, and maybe even when Shabbos goes out, Havdalah. That's a specific positive commandment that has a time frame, and as such, women ought not to be obligated by it. But since it's compared to Zocher, to Shomer, to keeping Shabbos, and women are instructed in Shomer, because Shomer is a negative prohibition against transgressing, against profaning Shabbos, traversing Shabbos, in which case, similarly, a person is commanded in Zocher is compared to the Shomer, to transgressing doing any malacha, any work on Shabbos. And maybe what that means is as follows: that the Shomer, there's two ways of looking at Shabbos, and that's reflected by Shomer and Zocher. And this is very much central to this idea. The Shabbos maybe is something that has got a certain. Hashem says you have to keep the Shabbos. In keeping the Shabbos, there's one of two ways of looking at it. You can look at it, Shabbos, so to speak, is like a yosem. It's not there. It needs us. If we wouldn't be keeping Shabbos, there'd be no Shabbos. We have to make the effort to keep Shabbos. Similarly to Yom Tov, we have to designate it as Yom Tov. So Shabbos does not need us to call it, to announce it, to base it, etc. It happens by itself. We're obligated by itself. Nevertheless, even within that dynamic, there's room still to explore. The Shabbos is sort of, it's not there at all until Klal Yisrael make the effort to keep the Shabbos. Or on the contrary, Shabbos fundamentally, the holiness is sort of, it's a natural expectation. It's an organic part of the Bria that there's a holiness of Shabbos. And Klal Yisrael is sort of, so to speak, just locking in. They're sort of just attaching themselves, tuning in to the holiness of Shabbos. Which is it? So you can say Shomer and Zocher really are expressing these two notions of Shabbos. Shomer means keep the Shabbos. What does it mean keep the Shabbos? Shomer means keep it, maintain it. There is a Shabbos. It's something that has to be looked after. There is an intrinsic holiness to Shabbos. Through Hashem's having rested on the seventh day and designated as an important day of rest, through that, Shabbos essentially is something that's there, it exists. Shomer means you just have to ensure that it doesn't get ruined. That's something that's appropriate also for women. That's a negative thing. You cannot do anything to destroy, to profane the Shabbos, that women are also appropriately commanded to be careful about. You cannot destroy Shabbos. You have no right to interfere negatively with Shabbos. Yes, we cannot expect you to go out and do something positive to sort of create a new holiness because you women are busy. So specific times we cannot expect you to have to leave everything and devote yourself to this. Only men can expect to do that. But if something's already there, the holiness of Shabbos is already there, You're not entitled to go and actively profane it. That's the shomer. The zocher, on the contrary, is the other idea that yes, it needs a positive reminder, so to speak, that there is Shabbos. It needs positive action to sort of designate it and to dedicate it, even though it exists without that, because the shomer is there. But it still needs us to enhance it, to dedicate it, to sanctify it, to enhance it. That's the zocher. So with the zocher aspect of it, you might say, since it needs our enhancement, our positive input, so maybe the Shabbos is in some ways lacking, that without our input, it would not actually have its special holy status. And on that comes along, Hashem says, no, shomer v'zocher, they're one thing together. It's all one. Essentially, the zocher does not teach us that the shomer is not there. The shomer, the contrary, tells us there is really zocher. The zocher is really part of shomer. Meaning what? That essentially, you can't say Shabbos is not really there and we have to go and sacrifice it, sanctify it. No. The shomer says Shabbos is a given, it's there. And therefore, even when you're approaching the zocher aspect of Shabbos, that it needs us to enhance it and give us holiness, it's not that without that input, that Shabbos would not be there. Of course, Shabbos would absolutely be there completely. As shomer is there, it's a given. You cannot do anything to negate it. The zocher is sort of just giving expression to perhaps acknowledging this shomer aspect. It maybe needs this sort of icing on the cake, this additional reminder that Shabbos is there intrinsically. But essentially, it's an expression of an idea of the Shabbos is fundamentally already there. And therefore women are commanded in the Zohar just like they're commanded in the Shomer. Because the Zohar is not coming to say you're doing something new, you're creating something new. It's just saying you're reminding yourself of something that's already there. Women are also expected to do that, to perform that. This maybe also is part of, was explained, that the idea of the Oinig Shabbos that the Rosh talks about. The special mitzvah of Oinig Shabbos, of dedicating Shabbos, of enhancing it, of enjoying it. Because we're saying, not just to give it, make it so holy, so unique, so prominent, so important in your lives, but more than that. The idea is more than that. The idea is something that it's organically, intrinsically there. That's the shomer. It's there. And the importance of that is that we can say every day, because the idea really is, it's an idea of inculcating our whole lives with holiness. It's not just that we have periods. The moyad is that we have periods, special periods of holiness. Perhaps when they're necessary because there are too many distractions. Shabbos is coming to say, yes, you have distractions, but you have to always remember that Shabbos is there, that the fundamental is our actual fact, our attraction, our perception, our waiting, our impatience to be able to completely dedicate ourselves to holy matters. No, unfortunately we have distractions. So Shabbos comes along and says, here there's something that sort of reminds you that really the holy service, the holy order, the holy serving of Hashem is really the basic, that's the given, that's the fundamental. That's the organic really world. And therefore based on that, it has to be a natural extension of the week, such that every day of the week really can say, Shabbos is I can anticipate Shabbos as sort of a definite, as a given, as a part already of this whole. Therefore holiness can sort of be emanate and projected onto every single day. It's already there. Today I can speak about Shabbos, it's already there. It's just a matter of time, of moving through this time continuum. Shabbos is going to be there, in which case it's already sort of infecting and infusing and inspiring every single day. And that's maybe the idea of the Shabbos, the Oinig. It's so significant that it has to impact on me even on Sunday. Even on Monday I have to be thinking, conscious of Shabbos. And as an Oinig, it's something that I'm looking forward to. It's something that's going to come without me in any way inhibiting it. It's going to be an oinig, it's something that I'm waiting for. And therefore, if I don't do anything, on the contrary, I'm waiting for Shabbos. Because I'm waiting for Shabbos, it already applies to me, already has an effect on me during the week. And it's something that I'm not going to in any way oppose. So I don't have to go through any particular difficult action to make it happen, on the contrary. And on the contrary, the oinig means that the Shabbos will automatically, I'm not going to do anything to oppose it. Naturally, Shabbos is going to transpire. Thereby, it's infusing holiness into the whole mundane aspect of a person's life. That's partly why Shabbos is not the moyed. Because the moyed means a specially designated time. Shabbos doesn't need any designation. Shabbos is part of an intrinsic, organic part of the holy order the whole time. And that's also why Shabbos does not need a special Kriyas HaTorah. It doesn't need to be laid, doesn't need to be read. Why? Because Shabbos is naturally there. Something has to be read, perhaps, if it needs to be reminded. You need to remind yourselves. It needs a special designating significant act to ensure that we pay respect to it, that we're reminded of it. Shabbos doesn't need that. Shabbos is integrated as an absolute part, as an organic part of our spiritual inheritance. And coming back to the Rosh, let's go back to Succos now. The Rosh gave us an interesting mnemonic. He started off, he told us on the korbanos of Succos. He said, it sometimes says Seir Izim, and sometimes says Seir Chatos. And he says, it's unusual, so how do you read it? How do you know which one? He says days 1, and day 2, and day 4, it says Seir Izim Chatos, and the other days it says Seir Chatos. And what's that saying? So one could say perhaps the following. What's the difference between Seir Izim Chatos and Seir Chatos? The difference one might say is the follows. Seir Chatos is saying a Seir, it's Ichatos. It's fundamentally a Chatos. Seir Izim Chatos is sort of one stage, a little stage slightly removed. That it's a Seir Izim. First of all, it's a Seir Izim, and then it's a Chatos. First of all, we give it its full status, what it really is. What really is a Seir Izim. It's this animal, but which is going to be brought as a Chatos. Whereas the idea of Seir Chatos, saying it's not even a completely Seir Izim. Why? It's completely taken over with the idea of it being a Chatos. It's more fundamentally a Chatos. Seir Chatos, it doesn't really matter what animal it is, it's a Chatos. Whereas when you say Seir Izim Chatos, you're sort of giving an idea, expressing an idea that first and foremost, it's a Seir Izim, and then yes, it's going to be brought as a Chatos. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's what the Rosh is telling us. In certain occasions, you have to view it as a Seir Chatos. In certain occasions, you have to view it as a Seir Izim Chatos. Certain occasions, it's nothing to do. It's a Chatos, absolutely. In certain occasions, it's a Seir Izim Chatos. You have to bring it. It's only a Seir Izim. It's an animal that also is brought sort of an extra as a Chatos. And significantly, maybe this is what the Rosh is pointing out very subtly. What days do you bring it? You call it as a Seir Izim Chatos. Days 1, days 2, and days 4. What's significant about that? Maybe it's a progression, it doubles. 1 times 2 is 4. Next time will be day 8, maybe. But also, if you look, what do the days add up to? 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. So maybe this sort of is significant of Shabbos. Maybe the Rosh is expressing the idea of Shabbos. Shabbos, we said, is different from the Moyadim. Shabbos does not have a Chatos. Why? There's nothing to atone for in Shabbos. Because Shabbos represents the natural state of holiness. It says that Klal Yisrael are sort of naturally dedicated, naturally waiting to immerse themselves in holy matters. There's nothing lacking in the service. They bring a double korbanos as an expression of the fact that now we're relieved of our other duties, our other mundane duties. We can dedicate ourselves towards Shabbos. That's how Shabbos expresses itself in the divine service. Therefore, there's no need for Chatos on Shabbos. There's nothing inappropriate, there's nothing wrong. On the contrary, we're completely dedicated. Shabbos is an expression of our total dedication towards serving Hashem, generally and in the Beis Hamikdash. Whereas the Moyadim are an expression of the fact that maybe there are distractions and we need to make a special effort to dedicate ourselves. It needs man's input, which otherwise it wouldn't happen. It's not part of the organic holiness of the world. In which case, there is room for error. There is room for having forgotten Hashem. That's why you have to bring a Chatos. So says the Rosh, that's this idea. On the days that represent Shabbos, 1 plus 2 plus 4, which is Shabbos, it's Seir Izim Chatos. It's not really a Chatos. You have to even remember, even though those days, it's not fundamental to bring a Chatos. It's a Seir Izim Seder, which is also brought as a Chatos. Whereas on all the other times, it's Seir Chatos, an absolute Chatos. Because then there is more fundamental obligation to bring in a Chatos. The Rosh also tells us this mnemonic for remembering the Purim. The Purim go down 13, 12, 11, 10. The first day it's 13, second day 12. And the Rosh told us, remember, always it is essentially adding up to 14. First day 14, second day 13, third day 12. And we know that also it's also the Purim, descending Purim are also against Ummah Zo'ilam, against the nations of the world. We might say it's expressed in the following idea. In 2 ways. That essentially we bring on Succos, sort of as the culmination of all the Moyadim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we're on a very high spiritual, elevated spiritual level. We want to bring many korbanos, we want to bring as much as we can. That's why we bring so many Purim and so many Kvosim. But we go down. And why do we go down? What's the descent on the second day? Because on the contrary, Sometimes it's actually sort of on Shabbos. Look at Shabbos. Shabbos you bring the much less. You bring of the special holy days. Shabbos brings the least, and that's not an expression of the fact that Shabbos is the least holy. According to what we're saying here, it's an expression of the fact that on the contrary, Shabbos is the most holy. It's an organic holiness. It does not need a special Torah, special enhancement, special unique effort to bring this huge amount of sacrifices to sort of compensate for the fact that there are distractions. There's so many distractions. That's why we have to enhance and compensate with extra sacrifices. Shabbos, no, is organic. This is the holy state. And it can be expressed as bringing a sort of the minimum, the double up what you normally bring. That's enough to say this is fundamental holiness. And that's maybe what Succos is telling us. Succos is this progression. We start off with great enthusiasm. Yes, we want to show how much dedicated we are to Hashem. And however, as we progress through Succos, we become more and more sort of inculcated and inspired and dedicated towards the service of Hashem, so we can come closer to the idea of Shabbos. We come down, and on the second day, we bring only 12, on the third day, only 11. As we progress each day, go up in our dedication, our holiness, we can reduce the amount of korbanos that are necessary for us to achieve our holy heights. And on the contrary, that's what it means, maybe the descent of the Goyim. That when we approach Sukkot, first of all, sort of the Goyim are high up, meaning the Goyim, the nations of the world, but also meaning the way we are affected by them. That's where it's expressed. That's where the nations of the world have a lot of significance. We are affected by them. We are occupying ourselves with the mundane matters of the world. So Chag Osif, we're busy bringing in, we're very much busy with bringing in all the tfuah, all the produce from the fields. That distraction sort of is an expression of the Goyim, the world itself, the mundane material world is taking a lot of our attention. And therefore we have to distract ourselves by bringing 13 parim, 14 kvosim in order to ensure that we're going to be properly dedicating ourselves to the holy service. However, as time goes on, we start to forget. It doesn't matter if I bring in all the tfuah, it can wait, my business can be closed for a few days, and Hashem teaches us this lesson. You do not have to be so fixated with dealing with all your mundane matters. The shop will survive, the factory will survive, the business will survive, the clients will manage. You close your office, you won't answer the phone, you won't answer your emails, everything will be okay. And that realization starts to impact upon you more and more as you spend more and more time in the Beis HaMikdash or with the Rebbe or in the Beis HaMedrash. As time goes, that's expressed by the going down. The world occupies less of a significant place to you as you move towards Shabbos. And maybe that's the idea of Yom Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres is a complete jump. And what's Atzeres? Atzeres is stop. Literally means a stop. Why is it called a stop? And unfortunately, it's very hard to understand what this stopping is. Stop. So you could say a very simple explanation. That essentially it's literally a stop. You stop. Hashem says, okay, you've been busying yourself with korbanos, now stop. So when I tell you to stop working, what do? You stop working. The whistle goes, the timer goes, the bell goes. Is that the lesson, end of the work period? Yeah, one stop, there's no question about that. Yeah, but we're swats. My Yisrael are not like that. When it comes to the end of the service, after Sukkot, 7 days of inspiration, we're saying, wow, we hear the final bell, we go, oh no, we've got to stop. We're just getting into it. B'yom Atzeres, let's see what you do, says Hashem. I'm telling you, it's the end of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is 7 days. Now it's the end. But Yisrael say no. On the contrary, we cannot bear to stop. We're so enjoying, we're so engrossed, we're so inspired in serving Hashem with such dedication. We cannot do anything but to carry on. So Shmini Atzeres becomes sort of almost an expression of that. It's like it becomes an organic extension of Sukkot. It becomes the natural extension. It becomes like Shabbos. It's 1 day Yom Tov. It's a Yom Tov that can be a regular, that's why 1 day. Because it becomes like Shabbos. It's a natural moving progression into making a Yom Tov. And that's why the Shmini Atzeres and Shavuos maybe also similar to Pesach, with a time differential there, but connected through the counting of the Omer. It's a similar idea. Because it's not a Yom Tov, Hashem doesn't say do anything positive. There's no distractions essentially. There's nothing you're coming to counter. On the contrary, you're actually coming to be elevated just through the natural desire to continue the holy Yom Tov of Pesach and of Sukkos. And therefore, the only thing we have maybe is Torah. We both are sort of inspired by Torah. We want to dedicate ourselves to something. Yes, so Torah now, this is where the Torah comes into itself. There's something where we can be attached to Hashem in any situation. We're desperately looking for, how can we fill this vacuum? We've been serving Hashem the whole time. on Pesach with the matzah, the mitzvahs and succos, the special mitzvahs and succos, what we're going to do, we're looking around the Torah. That's the answer. That's our answer, that's our pill, that's our medicine for our spiritual vacuum. Fill it up with Torah. That's what happens. Therefore, on Atzeres, it forms into a Yom Tov due to the incredible spiritual momentum that we achieved prior to that. And this is perhaps what the Rosh is alluding to. The Rosh brings the Medrash that, this is how the Rosh finished, so he brings the Medrash that, what bracha do you make on special people? So let's make a special bracha. Because everyone's got their own unique facets and characteristics. And then he brings the Moshe, the Moshe Rabbeinu said, so to speak, Hashem, look at Klal Yisrael, everyone's got individual facets and aspects to themselves. I need a leader that's going to represent and be able to cope and handle with that and to respect that, everyone's individual traits. And Hashem said on the contrary, don't tell me how I have to deal with Klal Yisrael, tell Yisrael how they should be dealing with me. And what we said, and similar to the story, the moshel of the king, he's got this wife, and she's perhaps sometimes annoying the king, and he's got this advisor who's placating him, and the advisor says, when I'm leaving, I want you to be extra careful, king, to not become over angered with your wife's conduct. And the king says, don't tell me, tell her to respect me. And we explained, and we're just going to explain now briefly what that was saying. What is that saying? Saying like this, that you, advisor, you, Moshe, view everyone as sort of individuals that have got their own needs, their own desires, and they're maybe not sufficiently dedicated towards serving me, therefore they need a leader who's going to look after all their opinions. Or this wife is perhaps, fundamentally, she's not expected to be naturally enough serving me, says the advisor, says the king on the contrary. Since I fundamentally am the king, Hashem says I am the king, therefore there's a natural expectation which I optimistically know is going to be niskayim, is going to be the clients are going to serve me as is befitting. On the contrary, you are the problem. Because you are here, you are the distraction, they know that if anything goes wrong, if they don't behave appropriately, then yes, you'll be there to intervene on their behalf. That's the only reason in the world why actually they don't behave properly. However, once you're gone, says the king, I expect they're going to act perfectly. Because fundamentally they are dedicated to me as an expression of my malchus, my majesty, and their dedication towards that too, enhancing that. I am confident that once you are no longer here, they will take hold of themselves and act as they ought to appropriately. That's Tzaras B'nai Yisrael. That's Hashem says to Moshe, how you meant to look at Klal Yisrael. They fundamentally do realize what their obligation is to serve Hashem with total dedication. You're here, that's why they allow themselves, they give themselves shortcuts, they make allowances for themselves. Once you're no longer here, they will appropriately understand and realize what their true expectations are, and I'm sure they will live up to them. And maybe the Rosh is telling us this as a way of approaching Avodas Hashem, so to speak. That essentially, yes, we're all individuals. We all have our unique facets, aspects, our unique desires, our unique imagination. And maybe, yes, we want to use these to serve Hashem. But in contrast to that is the way you serve Hashem. And this maybe is a reflection of the Moyadim and Shabbos and the Talmud. There's a way you want to serve Hashem. You can serve Hashem with you can build unique buildings and do unique projects and have unique approaches to things and imaginative initiatives that will do all sorts of enhancements of holiness. These are great, these are wonderful, and maybe they have a place. But yesh mukdam mucha b'Torah. There's an order, there's a sacred to things, and the order is like this. First of all, you have to be a good soldier. You have to learn the basic trade. You have to dedicate yourself, become a mensch first of all. All of these things are saying you have to get the basics right first. You cannot start with the fancy extras. You have to get the basics first of all. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let's Tzaras B'nai Yisrael. What's the first thing? The Talmud. Every day you bring a Talmud. And every Shabbos you bring also a simple Talmud. Let's get the basics working. Let's get first every day there's a given. You daven 3 tefillins, you do all the mitzvahs, you put on tefillin, you daven to Hashem, you give tzedakah, you say your brachas, you do everything you have to do. Your basic obligations, that is fundamental. Once you've got that, you got the Talmud, you got the Shabbos, says Hashem, okay, now we can talk, yes, about maybe getting a bit fancy, getting imaginative. Then, yes, I'm prepared to contemplate that everyone's got their own unique facets and their own unique way of serving Hashem. But that cannot be the starting point. That cannot be the way that we approach Avodas Hashem. Avodas Hashem is telling us here, no, it's first of all built on the basics, build yourself up, make yourself a man, a dedicated servant of Hashem who's completely fulfills the Tariq mitzvahs, learns Mishnah Berurah, knows all the halachas, serves Hashem the way it should be. And then you can go and start your unique projects and unique ideas, and unique imaginative initiatives. This is the message of Shabbos and of the Moyadim. Shabbos is something that's natural, that's something that's basic. It's a given, you shouldn't even have to think about it. It's a holiness that is inherent to the world. After that, yes, the Moyadim. There are time maybe sort of for the creative aspect of serving Hashem, perhaps to find some expression. Baruch Hashem, Siyat Dishmai, I think we have tried to do some justice to Parshas Pinchos and Daf Torah. I hope it's been of some use and of some inspirational value. Siyat Dishmai. And there's one point we forgot to mention in Pinchos regarding when I think Shem Ish Yisrael Amukeh. We said when Pinchos killed someone from Yisrael and he killed the Midyanis. And when it says when the Yisrael, it says V'Shem Ish Hamukeh, V'Shem Ish Yisrael Hamukeh. And when it came to the Midyanis, it says V'Shem Ish Hamuko. It doesn't say Ish Midyanis Hamuko. Perhaps this is expressing the idea we said, coming back to the idea of Yisrael, how important Yisrael are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Namely that when it came to the Yisrael, yes, he's done something wrong. He's done something terrible. But nevertheless, he's still Yisrael. Fundamentally, we have an expectation. That was what Pinchos was coming actually to enhance. There's an expectation in place where we've got a certain standard, spiritual standards of behavior. And like Moshe Rabbeinu, when it came to having to execute capital punishment, even on someone who's done the most heinous of crimes, Moshe Rabbeinu stopped and took his time. He said, "It's not straightforward to deny life of Yisrael." Similarly, even Pinchos, when it came to executing Zimri, even Zimri, who had done such heinous crimes and was inculcating the whole of Am Yisrael with his inappropriate ideas, his universalism, his humanism perhaps. Nevertheless, Pinchos, when he came to kill him, it was slightly inhibited, slightly careful. It wasn't so straightforward. It was a Shem Ish Yisrael. He was first of all Ish Yisrael, and then he was Mukeh. Whereas when it came to the Midyanis, there was no question whatsoever. She has transgressed, she is making Klal Yisrael sin, there's no question what we have to do. After that, Hamidyanis. First of all, she was Isha Mukha. There's no questions to ask. If she's not to Yisrael, then there's only one appropriate way of dealing with this, that she has to be given the capital punishment without any questions asked. This is contrasting again, perhaps, the unique status that Klal Yisrael are accorded even under these most trying circumstances.